Hello, my beautiful people of the world. If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And also, by the way, almost forgot the bell too. Click the bell. Yes, that bell over there. You clicked it? Okay, great. Hey, what's up, and welcome to LinguCast, the podcast that's all about linguistics and language learning. And we are here with a very special guest, Ustaz Kirk. Ustaz Kirk, I call him Ustaz because he teaches Arabic, and we're taught to address the professors as Ustaz, but here he is.
Kirk Belnap.
Kirk Belnap, the amazing one. Ustaz Kirk, he's a linguist, an Arabic teacher, and he has had some projects involving sociolinguistics and immersion programs. So here's the first, and we like to start with the first question that we ask every linguist. What's linguistics?
The science of language. Next question.
The science of language.
Very concise.
Very concise.
Yeah.
And so what made you start your journey in linguistics? How was the beginning? What made you so interested in this field?
I wanted to do some good in the world, and I started talking with people at that time who were interested in renewable energy. And I realized that did not have the background for some of the things there. And so I went with things that I was passionate about, and that was language. And I actually thought I was going to be do biblical studies. And so started out in biblical Greek and a freshman, and then in biblical Hebrew later. And my biblical Hebrew teacher said to me, he says, we have this great new Arabic teacher. And Arabic, of course, is a part of biblical studies, a traditional part of biblical studies. But I was already thinking about the modern world was kind of calling me. I've never lost my interest in the ancient Near East. But so I thought, well, I'll take an Arabic class, and I took one, and then another, and you have to be careful how many. If you take too many, it has decisive outcomes.
Oh, really? What outcomes?
Well, here I am. So that was my story of getting into Arabic. I had some really interesting experiences along the way of meeting a Lebanese man in Switzerland who was sitting out the Civil War. We were knocking on doors, and he said, "Come on and have breakfast." No Swiss ever had us in for breakfast.
I can't empathize with that.
And that was eye-opening to have goat cheese and tomatoes and olives and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, this is fun. He was crazy. He was the stereotypical Lebanese man, all bravado and so funny. Yeah, it was an eye opener.
And so this is what started you into your Arabic journey, getting interested in the culture in the Middle East and everything.
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of things going on. I was in Europe at the time of the Iranian Revolution. There were just Middle Easterners all over, and we were running into people, and I became intrigued by the modern Middle East.
And so, why were you in Switzerland?
I was a missionary in Switzerland and Germany. Yeah.
So it was Switzerland and Germany at that time together.
Yeah.
I was
just the Black Forest area of Germany.
I was in Germany, so yeah.
Very cool.
So that's how you got your baggage of languages. I would say language knowledge: German, ancient Greek.
Well, my Greek and Hebrew is very limited. I mean, I've studied a little French and Russian and Chinese and Arabic and Turkish and so forth. But I wouldn't claim any kind of proficiency in anything beyond. I mean, really Arabic and my German is rusty, but it's serviceable sometimes. Yeah.
Very cool. So I'm curious about how you saw that. You were passionate about languages and linguistics. how did you see the connection between wanting to do some good in the world and then choosing linguistics as
Well, okay, so you realize that, okay, if I'm not going to be the granddaddy of solar farms or something like that, then maybe I could help people have a little better experience on their. I mean, building bridges across cultures,
Yes.
of course, is a really important thing.
Yeah.
And I had a really miserable start with my first language experience. This was German in the 8th grade. My teacher was. It was not a friendly experience, let's say. She was all about order and classroom control, and there was I don't remember too much joy in my first year of German. And then I went to high school, and my second and third years of German were absolutely miles apart. I mean, just
Wow.
a whole different world. And it turned out that teacher, Herr Bruce, was a nationally award-winning teacher. I mean, he was so effective, and it was so fun, and it was, anyway. So I had a really up close and personal view of what foreign language education shouldn't be and could be,
Yes.
right? And then I got into studying Arabic. I mean, also Hebrew and Greek, but not less so with those languages. Studying Arabic, and I was like, oh man, we can do these materials are so terrible. And indeed they were, and they were soon eclipsed by other series. And you can always criticize materials, but I thought, oh, we can do this so much better. And I got to be on the cutting edge of experiments in doing things much better. It was really fun. Yeah, when my colleague who. So I was hired when I was still a graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania. I was hired to come and organize and run the first intensive Arabic program, BY's program at the Jerusalem Center in 1989.
Cool.
When I got back, my colleague had got a Fulbright to go do research in Egypt. So I kept on. That wasn't the plan. It was supposed to be a one-year gig. So I kept on for a second year.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, have at sociolinguistic authenticity." So we had been doing, there was the proficiency movement was really rolling, up and rolling in the 80s. And we started asking ourselves questions. And a lot of people, we were, like, for example, there was this great program at Middlebury College, a summer program at Middlebury College, and they were just doing amazing things with Anyway, Middlebury College was doing amazing things with intensive, people were coming out, they were speaking Arabic. Arabic had been, Arabic's been taught since the 1600s at Harvard and other places as part of theological studies, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really until after World War II that there was any attention paid to modern Arabic.
Okay.
In fact, my person on my dissertation committee, Charles Ferguson, was the person who put modern Arabic on the map in the United States. And
Really?
yeah, and so as we got to looking at, wow, what is authentic in the Arab world, we realized what they were doing at Middlebury College and other places, speaking so-called modern standard Arabic, formal Arabic, is not authentic for conversation.
Of course not.
It's terribly, terribly artificial. And I mean, it has its function, but it's not natural, right?
Sure.
So looking for sociolinguistic authenticity, we, that was about 1990, started experimenting with what are we going to do to make this, a more authentic experience. And it's very interesting that we and a couple of other people around the country, Munder Yunus at Cornell, some colleagues at the Ohio University, and then I believe there was some folks in Amsterdam who simultaneously started this experiment with sort of a more authentic approach, which has developed into, now it's not uncommon to find this sort of integrated, what's often called an integrated approach, where people do both formal and vernacular Arabic simultaneously in the classroom.
Interesting.
Yeah. This is interesting. So you teach Arabic, and Arabic is an interesting language that kind of differs from what we as Westerners consider a language, because we because I like to say, oh, Arabic is 2 languages in one, but my brain kind of see Arabic as 2 languages, but Arabs themselves, they see Arabic as one. There's the Fusha, the high standard Arabic, and then there's the dialect, the Amiya, how they call it. But in my brain, my brain's like, oh, yeah, the same way that Portuguese and Spanish are different languages, Fusha and Amiya, they're also different languages. But how did you integrate? Like, because this was something very sociolinguistic because you took the Arab perspectives, like, no, we should be teaching these together because they're the same language. How did you, first of all, how did you come up with this approach, and how do you manage people confusing both? Because we're dealing with linguistically speaking, kind of like 2 separate languages in a way.
Well, some people would say that.
Yeah, some people say that because that's what my brain says in a way.
I always use the analogy of imagine a large iceberg with 2 peaks. It's one piece of ice, but it happens to have 2 peaks sticking out of the water. So from the first impression is these are 2 different things. But if you look closer, you find that there's way more shared than is not shared.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, okay.
And when you look at syntax, morphology, vocabulary, there is so much more shared between every variety of Arabic in each other than is different. That it's superficial differences.
Yes.
The superficial differences really catch people's attention, both native and non-native, and people overfocus on differences. And anyway, that's my take. But I think the biggest argument for teaching for this integrated approach that we do, the best argument is, in my view, is that that's what Arabs do.
Yes.
You can hardly find a sample of speech that is not a mixture.
Exactly.
Right. You have more and more so-called spoken Arabic popping up in written documents and vice versa, things that used to be considered the domain of the education and higher levels of Arabic in spoken. It's impossible to function as if you were going to be doing field work as an anthropologist with a bunch of illiterates in the mountains in Yemen, it still would be hard to interact with people without some familiarity with a lot of religious language, right?
Which would be modern
Which would be of the formal variety. So even if you wanted to work entirely with illiterates, you would still find yourself at a difficult spot to understand what is going on without knowing something about both varieties. And frankly, when we teach English, we don't just teach English of formal English. We teach about contraction. We teach about slang and so forth. And so anyway, it's really a language ideology thing. Battle. Lots of Arabs just feel like, oh, this is wrong. You should not do this. And I always tell people, when people call me on the carpet for mixing, I just say, you set your house in order and we'll follow suit. This is not my problem. I'm not going to fix this problem. You fix this problem.
Yeah, because I've seen Arabic. I've for a while I immersed myself in Arabic media, and I'm like, is he using that Amiya construction? He's using the Amiya word there. Like, this word is only used in Lebanon. And then sometimes I used to see comment sections, right? Comment sections of them using mixtures of Arabic, be it's Egyptian with Syrian, so there's a large online corpora, because the online world is kind of this interesting thing between the literary language, because you write, but then again, we feel like we're speaking, and sometimes we even talk out loud when we're writing a comment or saying something.
That's right. More and more, there is an overlap of what used to be, if it ever, I don't know to what degree things were ever purely separated, but the advent of online chat rooms and social media and so forth, there's a decided drift towards less formal complex discussions, discussions of very abstract and sort of so-called educated topics, but in a manner that's done in a more informal manner, right? A more conversational manner. And that just makes for crazy explosion of mixing. Yeah.
That's
levels.
Exciting.
Yeah.
So you research about motivation in language learning, and how does motivation play a role in learning? Let's say like you taught Arabic. How do you motivate your students to study? Because I'm pretty sure, because we can see in language classes where the one-on-one class is full of people, and then the more advanced you go, the thinner the.
This is called Lambert's Law.
Lambert's Law. Yeah.
Lambert's Law is that you get 50% attrition every year. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Roughly. This is typical for foreign languages, that you get roughly 50% attrition. Actually, our attrition, we should look at it sometime. Right now, because of the carrot of our study abroad program, that's a huge draw, we have relatively little attrition. In fact, Spanish 101 has really high attrition.
Makes sense.
Which was a surprise to me. But in terms of motivation, this is one of those things where there are a variety of factors that act on an individual and social, right? So my friend in Korean, she's Julie, she really focused on building community, so that they are going to want to move on together, right? And we see this very much, the camaraderie that develops amongst Arabic students. It's just like having foxhole buddies, right? If you go through something challenging together, you develop a very strong social bond. And I know a lot of people who have pushed on to go on study abroad just because it was like, I don't want to be left behind. I don't want my buddies to be, I want to be reading about what my buddies are doing.
Interesting.
And so it's a huge part of the thing. Other things that are really big, hope is always, Albert Bandura, who wrote the book on self-efficacy studies, basically, and actually some of this thinking probably came from a grad student who was talking to him about the lectures on faith. He's talking about that you have to have hope, that you don't try to do things that you don't have some sort of hope that you're going to have a return on your investment, right? It's just going to work for you, right? And so one of the things that's been really, really big for us has been, teaching principles that promote self-efficacy and helping students to experience little successes, right?
Yeah.
So in the first couple of weeks of class, students they're conversing in Arabic, and that's kind of exciting, to go from 0 to whatever, in just a couple of days or weeks, and so you give them success experiences. You expose them to peers who have been really highly successful. So we always have non-native TAs, as well as we have Arab TAs too to work with. But seeing non-native TAs and the fluency that they've achieved is really encouraging to students. So those are, and I have all kinds of case studies on this, our project Perseverance project, which we can talk about. In fact, I'll just tell you, after 9/11, I ended up putting together a team of people that became the National Middle East Language Resource Center. This was a project funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Cool. And one of the things that we did was we wanted to look at the pipeline. So there was one of the questions after 9/11 is, why didn't we have, people were at the FBI and so forth were asking, well, we need help and so forth. And we would interview students and we say, okay, what's your goal? We'd like to do this, and we say, so what's the breakdown? Why don't we have more people who are qualified to be helpful, right? Have professional level proficiency and so forth. And we did site visits all over the country and in the Middle East, and this is for Arabic, Hebrew, Turkish, and Persian that we were looking at, and surveyed over 1,000 students at 40 institutions, and really was very revealing to discover that the students were very interested. There was no lack of interest, but that the pipeline had serious bottlenecks for students who might want to press on and get higher levels of proficiency.
So the question, this is you're talking about Project Perseverance. What is so?
This is where Project Perseverance came from. So I'm just saying this research that we did on why are students learning these languages, and how far do they want to go with them?
Yeah.
And so then that after we had done lots of site visits and interviews and so forth, it became really clear that that it was a matter of you got to stay on the horse if you're going to go somewhere, right? You have to you have to continue, you have to persevere.
Yeah.
And so one of our advisors suggested this name. One of the advisors on this National Middle East Language Research Center, Andrew Cohen, from the University of Minnesota. He said, well, this sounds like it'd be good, this project, researching this and trying to help find ways to help students stay in the game, right? Project Perseverance would be a great name for it, and I loved it. I just said, yes, that's it. Okay, Andrew, we're going to run with that. And so we started doing various types of research on things, that were promoting students getting to higher levels of proficiency. And this went from, there were all kinds of things that culminated in some of the more physiological measures we've been doing recently, which was like hair cortisol, stress on study abroad, and measures of hair cortisol. Wow. We just did heart rate we're writing up a study on heart rate variability. Turns out that hair cortisol, the more hair cortisol you've got over the course of your study abroad, the lower your gains in oral proficiency.
Really,
right?
all these
So stress really does take a toll on people.
So, by all this biological changes can also affect the language learning.
Absolutely, stress. As one of our other advisors, Madeline Ehrman said, she said, anxiety eats cognition, and we can see that. We can prove that with. We've done blood pressure, hair cortisol, and now heart rate variability. We're writing up this, and indeed, heart rate variability, which is a measure of your wellness, physical wellness. Heart rate variability predicts OPI outcomes.
Really?
Yeah.
So interesting.
Which is cool because now you can have an Apple Watch that can tell you all. It's not the most accurate, but it's accurate enough for an individual to track to get the biofeedback to say, hey, I'm not in the best place. I need to rethink what I'm doing, whether that is breathing or yoga or meditation or more sleep, more exercise, all kinds of things like this that could help person optimize performance, right? So these are all kinds of things that have gone into some of the things have gone into Project Perseverance. So now we have this website that has case studies, also some summaries of our research or and others that we find really useful or sort of summarized there. But so the case studies are the ones. Case studies are part of the self-efficacy cornerstones, right? It's near peer, looking at other peers and thinking, oh man, if she could do that, I could do that,
Right.
So that's the plan.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm kind of thinking of an experience I had a few years ago in a class. I was taking an organ class, beginning organ class, and our professor had done research on practice techniques over years, and in this class, I feel like almost more than the organ skills I learned were the practice skills I learned that I could apply both to that specific domain and to other things. I wonder if in your teaching, since you've done this research, if you kind of emphasize those kinds of techniques or your findings about acquisition in addition to teaching Arabic.
Absolutely. A cornerstone of going far in something is deliberate practice, right? You've got to have feedback that you ideally you have a coach who knows how to identify the very specific things you need to work on, right? But one of the first things I try to get students doing from the very beginning is start recording yourself.
Really?
Become an observer of your own output, and then get the friend I mentioned before, Madeline Ehrman. She worked at the State Department for years and decades,
Mm-hmm.
and was in charge of research at their language school at the
Okay.
FSI. And one of the things that they did as a result of her work was to set up a special advisement center that helped people both processing their experience as well as with training into becoming a more effective learner. And one of the things that they found was, so if you look at this 0 to 5 scale the government has for rating languages, that people who get beyond 3, so the 3 is minimal level proficiency,
It's
superior.
It's what's the difference between this one and the ACTFL one?
ACTFL is 0 to 3, so
0 to 3.
superior is 3,
Okay.
and then the ACTFL actually has for level 4 they call it distinguished.
Mhm.
It's very rare we ever see anybody who is a distinguished level speaker that this anyway. So she looked at people in the State Department were getting to this level 4, which is like the ability to negotiate nuclear treaties and and do very sensitive things.
Okay.
And one of the things they found about people who made it, who got to level, it takes a lot of time
Yeah.
and exposure, and it takes a disposition that is a sharpening. So they have this trait of they're natural or cultivated sharpeners. So they see, I'm falling short in this way. This is where I need to be, and they can work in terms of in a very focused way on closing the gap between their performance and the ideal performance.
Interesting.
So yeah, deliberate practice is huge.
Deliberate practice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Fascinating. So what are some? So you worked with you mentioned the intensive program. Program. What are like some challenges in that students usually face?
Okay, so one of the major challenges that we have, and this is a myth that is widespread in America, and it's particularly in our community of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who are very familiar with missionaries, and they think, oh, well, you just need to go and get in country, and then pop, it's like magic, right?
Yeah.
You just parachute them in, and voila, there it goes. And of course, anybody who reads their journal about their first months in country will realize, oh no, it was not magic. It was painful. It was very, very challenging experience, right? And so one of the myths that we have circulating in our American minds is that immersion is magic and that's all you need, right? So we see this all the time with students who think, well, I'm not such a great classroom learner, but I learned Tagalog in the field, and so therefore, when I get on the ground, it's gonna work, right? And it turns out that that is a big problem to have that attitude that somehow it's going to be magical. I always use the example of saying the same spirit that gets on the airplane gets off the airplane, right? And if you have been delaying here, you're going to be just as prone to avoidance behavior there, right, in country.
Sure.
And so unrealistic expectations is huge, not just for our own religious community, but across the board, all kinds of problems with students who think that somehow immersion is going to be the magic pill.
And how does one do? And the question is, what does immersion done right look like?
Well, immersion done right.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that there's any one immersion done right, but clearly, if you take child language learning, if you have a context that is very focused on the here and now and the real, right? So say, oh, don't touch that, that's hot, or here, honey, come over here and play with this ball. I mean, there's a lot of context, right? And that's enormously helpful in trying to make sense of the world and connect language and use and so forth. And so a high context, an opportunity to be in a place. On our website, we have this story of this Hebrew learner It's a fascinating story. And he is, I'm going to skip over the early stages of the thing of how he gets to be an advanced level Hebrew learner. He has this internship where he is taking largely Israeli tourists around and looking at this historical building. And this is really interesting for a non-native to be in this position of doing tours for native speakers, right? And but it's just the most brilliant language learning opportunity, because what does he do is he has a script, right? He has a script, just like missionaries have a script, well, we used to have a memorized script, but more or less we have scripts about, we're going to talk about this, we know how to talk about that, right? This is the direction that things are going to go. So there's a certain amount of constraining the field of possibilities that we're going to talk about, right?
Right.
And so this guy is giving this thing, and every day as he does this tour, these Israelis they are merciless in terms of their questions, and they just push. So every day he gets a new question that he can't answer, right? And so he goes back and how do I answer this question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the most amazing language learning thing, because he's got exactly this he's got a limited domain, and then he can just keep stretching the borders of that domain to expand his capability to, I mean, that is for me one of the greatest natural immersion, possibilities. So that would be, this is a little bit what we like to do on our immersion, our immersion program, is we'll take them and we'll expose them to readings and discussions that are very constrained. I refer to it as the beachhead approach, where you get some control of some area that is yours, and then you just gradually expand out right from that. And that's one of the really sad things about a lot of language textbooks. These sort of, they put together, here's some poetry, here's some this, and here's some that, and here's some that, And it's like you never get to be confident about anything there, right? Every time you turn to a new chapter, it's like, what? This is, I don't know how to do this. And so yeah. Anyway, those are just a couple of the things that I think that are helpful. Another big one is the psychological challenge of in-country study. It is really, really hard not to be able to express yourself. Really?
Yes.
It's really hard on people not to be able to express themselves. And so helping them work through that and just say, listen, it'll come. You got to go. You see, it's baby steps, this is, and I, from the first week of 101, I try to encourage students to have a mentality of develop your repertoire. What is it you want to be able to talk about? And I always tell them, don't pick cross-country skiing. Nobody is going to be able to relate to this, right?
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to pick something where you find common ground. And family means everything to Arabs. So if you want to build really, really great social networks, which Dr. Dewey has shown is really key to moving forward with your language skills. If you want to build, if you want to really build a social network that's going to take you culturally and linguistically in very interesting places, because our first inclination is safety, huddle with the tribe, right? So people go around in these little island communities, little American communities, go touring around safely with each other, right? And
Yeah, I know exactly where I can find the Brazilians, the Mexicans, and the Peruvians. They're all hanging out, right? They all hang out together.
Right. It's a safe little community. So you got to get into you have to think, okay, I have to establish, a social network that is whatever, Arab or whatever language you're learning, and so that's one of the things we do with students is help them get this vision of, okay, I got to build my repertoire, I got to be able to talk to people about their families. Then people, as I express to my Uber driver, this is my cousin, and he does this and this and this. What do your cousins do? Oh, you want to meet my cousin, right? And those kind of things turn into really interesting possibilities.
Cool.
We had a student who religiously went to the youth activity for the Orthodox Church in Amman, And by the end of the semester, this was not easy for him. I mean, it was like, linguistic fire hose, and lots of times not feeling super comfortable and so forth. But by the end of the program, he was their hero. I mean, he was like, they gave him a special sweatshirt, and he sang in the choir for
Wow.
Christmas, and had just a really, really rich experience, right? I've known students who have not gone more than about 100 yards from our language institute.
Interesting.
Right? They know where to shop for, they can get food, they can get whatever. They've got people they can talk to, retail merchants, right? This is the extent of their cultural experience.
Yeah.
Is 100-yard radius from the language institute.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That you go overseas and then don't, go much deeper than that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe we can do one final question?
Yeah, the one final question. Do you want to ask the final question, Sophie?
This one on here?
Yes, final one.
Okay, this is a great question. What would you say are the greatest rewards of language learning? And you've already discussed it somewhat.
It's absolutely just like the aims of BYU education. It is about personal growth.
Personal growth.
In the end, I think probably all education is in the end about personal growth, and particularly in that you get to connect with people who do not see the world like you do, and you learn things about yourself. I'm sure as you did in your organ class, you learn things about yourself that you didn't know from your previous experience.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's all about personal growth. I've been really worried about the stresses that students. I mean, I have put students. Our cortisol research showed that students were experiencing levels of stress on a par with someone who had been through a divorce or lost a loved one.
Really?
Wow.
That's really not good for your health, right?
Yeah.
It's really not good for your health. And so I've been kind of, nervous about, wow, am I an accessory to,
Yeah.
taking years off your life?
Yeah.
And so there have been people that I've been interviewing over the years, and for example, one of the people who had some of the worst stress in this study, interviewed him 5 years later, and it was so beautiful to see the things. Turns out that much of the stress had been as a result of PTSD from other things in his life. So not only was there a lot of stress in his life coming into the program, then there was the stresses of getting to be, he wasn't really an experienced language learner, and so forth. And God bless him, he went on to pursue a graduate degree that would require him to do field work in Arabic. It was like he embraced the challenge, and his description of if he had to do over again, what would he do? So beautiful in terms of, I would spend more time listening to music from the culture. I would spend more time with, it was a gorgeous thing, and I have yet, and this is amazing because I know we've had over 1,000 students who have studied just in Jordan, and we've had students in Damascus and Cairo and Morocco and other places, right? And so over 1,000 students have been through the program in Jordan, and I don't know a single person who said, big mistake, never should have done that.
Yeah.
Everybody that's ever talked to me, and of course, my sample is going to be somewhat biased. But I have sought people out who I was worried about and thinking, maybe this wasn't a really great idea. I remember one young woman who's just married, and it was just like she was trying to, she was. It's hard when you're not toward the top of your class. If you're one of the people who's really, kind of like hanging in there by their fingernails. So she's trying to stay in the game and trying to be sensitive to what her husband's going through with this culture. Experience this shock, and so I managed to connect with her, and I wrote her mid-semester. I was writing her and asking her about her stresses, and I was really worried about her, and she just stopped responding. And I just thought, what happened? And then like years later, I happened to reconnect with her, and I said, so how'd it go? This was the best experience of my life.
Wow.
I just thought, hallelujah. So yes, personal growth.
Yeah.
Take on hard things. We ran these summer programs for kids here. These were Star Talk program. There was Chinese and Arabic. It was funded by the federal funding, and I had one child after another who, at the end of this was a 3-week intensive. They lived on campus. They were like they did a full year of Arabic in like full semester of Arabic in like, was it semester? Yeah. Anyway, like 3 weeks.
Whoa.
And it was really like, fasten your seatbelt sort of experience for them. And at the end of the interviews, we had kids who would say things like, I can do hard things. I didn't realize what I'm capable of. It was like, yes, that's so cool.
That's amazing.
So personal growth. Yeah, 3 cheers for personal growth.
Amazing.
And language learning. Lots and lots of stuff is telling us that neurologists, people looking at brain plasticity, saying there's hardly anything that stretches your mind more, right, than learning a language.
Yeah.
So, I had a 90-some-year-old guy come in, and he said, I spent my life cutting people's brains open to decide to figure out what killed them.
Whoa.
And he said, language learning. You want to be learning languages. It's going to keep your brain plastic. So
Wow.
Great.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great.
My pleasure.
Just a pour of knowledge and wisdom right there.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's like, I hope you learned something in
Oh, we learned
40-some years of being at something, right?
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was it.
My pleasure.
That was it, guys. Thank you so much. The Ustaz Kirk is an amazing guy, and so much genius was poured here.
I've had the opportunity to learn from amazing, amazing students. We're very, very fortunate. And thank you for your time.
Of course, thank you.
Bye.